8 o'clock on the dot. I'm first warning meteorologist Eric Burris, and this is Coffee Talk. We get together 7 days a week to chat about what's going on in the world of weather. It was far too busy last night with showers and storms. If you were trying to watch the evening Coffee Talk, we ended up just getting completely railroaded by Mother Nature. And Mother Nature's trying to do the same thing. We knew this was going to happen, but you can see in the bottom corner there, we're watching storms on our first warning live Doppler radar. That's kind of the first big thing. Did have some severe weather up in Marion County. We'll be checking in on our first warning live Doppler radar there in just a few moments' time. Plus, tracking the tropics. There are two waves. Well, I should say there are two waves plus a tropical storm that we're watching. What? You're looking at the two that are over land, another trying to work off the coast of Africa. We are going to have complete coverage on all of these storms coming up in just a few minutes' time. But first, let's just set the overall pattern up this morning, at least in the metro. It is beautiful, but our first warning live Doppler radar tracking some nasty weather moving into parts of Marion County. Let me take you in here and just kind of show you. This is north of Ocala right now, where we're watching these storms around D'Anthony, Reddick, working out to Salt Springs and the Ocala National Forest. Looking at the wind velocities on our first warning live Doppler radar, and we're finding sub-severe winds, 30, 40, 50 miles per hour. So it's not the kind of weather that is truly severe. It's borderline, but we're also scanning pretty high. So I would guess we're probably in the range of about 30, 35 miles per hour. No severe thunderstorm warnings in effect up there right now, but we did have some earlier, and certainly that's going to be something that we will need to be watching for, okay? So, with that said, where are these storms going and when will they arrive, all right? So we're tracking them moving at about 25 or so miles an hour as our live radar sweeps through, and they're moving kind of off toward the east. They're along a line that extends here into Marion County, so let's do this. Let's zoom in and show the heavier rains around Marineland and Palm Coast. Yeah, I mean, it's raining cats and dogs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on a wide angle, and I'm going to storm track this, moving at 25 miles an hour, okay? So when does the rain arrive? I'm going to just track the heavier stuff, all right? Right? Okay. All right, so here's when the heavier stuff arrives in your neighborhood. All right, Palm Coast, next couple of minutes' time. That makes sense. Flagler Beach at 9:01. Favoretta at 9:11. Ormond Beach 9:47. And as long as this line holds firm and kind of keeps what it is now, Daytona Beach, approaching 10:51. South Daytona, Port Orange, etc., etc., etc. Of course, we know how that works. So that's where we're at right now. Okay, temperatures out the door, not the way that they were yesterday. We're not talking about big daytime heating helping to fire these storms up. So at least we've got that helping us out just a little bit. In terms of the forecast today, shower, thunderstorm activity the next few hours' time, but looking at lunchtime into the afternoon, we're going to bring that rain coverage down little by little by little, all right? So it's going to be kind of an interesting little weather scenario. I'm looking at your comments. I see Laura mentioning we have 26 lawns today. My suggestion would be start north and work your way south. That's kind of where we're at in terms of the forecast. Just opportunities for storms working in. And we're going to keep that radar up in the bottom left corner of your screen just as much as we can today during Coffee Talk. Okay, so there's a look at the day planner. I would add that our computer model guidance has been doing just terribly, and it's by no fault of its own. I had a friend of mine yesterday say, "Listen, I got to level with you." Actually, let me just read. Let me just read his message. Okay, I went to college with him. All right, he said now. You have to understand, this is a friend, so he's not meaning it to be a thing. But, yo, dude, weather question for you. What's been going up at the weather prediction lately? Seems like there's been a lot of days with predictions of heavy rain and storms, but when the day arrives, we see a lot of blue sky and sunshine. He mentioned that he had seen a Reddit thread about it, and I basically said there's this weird pattern. The computer models are terrible. It's stormed every day, but it's just been this kind of weird squeeze play. And that we eventually, 2 days, 3 days time from now or so, we should get back to a normal pattern, but it's just been a little goofy. And he went on to mention, like, it's kind of interesting inside baseball, yada, yada, but it has been odd, and that's just the way that it is. That's why, like, every weather app has been flat wrong. And we're doing our best to forecast it. And I think that we've done a really good job of taking trash from these models. And it's not just Futurecast, it's all of them. And making good data out of it. So here's Futurecast, and right off the bat, bottom left corner is our live radar showing storms in Marion. Futurecast is doing, I think, a fantastic job this morning. At the very least, you got to give credit when credit's due, okay? Seriously. So there we are, 10 o'clock. Storms moving into Sumter, Lake County, Volusia, kind of knocking on the doorstep of the metro. There's 11, 12 o'clock. The storms kind of working into the metro. 1:30, 2 o'clock, storms around. And then we kind of just, at least according to Futurecast, this morning mess just helps to refire afternoon storms. So we'll have to see how this plays out. At the very least, though, we're in an interesting weather pattern. And can confirm it is an interesting, frustrating weather pattern. Chris mentions that's why AI will not replace meteorologists in the next 5 years. I think I have. Let's see if I'm 39, 49, 50. So I got 20 plus years. AI just needs to hang out for 25 years. I have 25 years left in the career. That's all I'm asking for. I don't ask for much. All right. Now, those storms that are firing up today could get a little strong. Of course, we look to our severe weather threats the next few days, and we're under a level 1 out of 5 risk for strong to severe storms today, tomorrow. Then into Thursday, we do look to be getting back to normal. All right. So that's where we're at right now. Any questions about it? And Annie says, yeah, it's not our normal rain in the afternoon. I was wondering too. This is a very feisty little weather pattern we're in. A little frustrating, but it's a feisty one. All right. Michael, where the heck did those storms come from in Orlando last night? They popped up out of nowhere. Was that sea breeze colliding? So essentially, I wonder, will this go back far enough? If not, I may have to do a little graphical building. So there it is. No, it doesn't go back far enough. All right, hold on. Give me a second. Let me load up our radar. I don't think our radar will buffer back far enough. Yeah, it won't. All right, hold on. Okay. HQ, North America. Give me a second. I'm building it. All right. So this is 4:16 yesterday afternoon, okay? What we were watching was this little piece of energy out in the Gulf of Mexico. Watch how that piece of energy dropped south. All right, we get off the air, and there was a first inclination of stuff around Flagler County there. You see that, right? Then that went severe, okay? And then watch how this line just worked into town, and you got those storms exploding. So what ended up happening is these storms up here started putting outflow boundaries out, and these storms started putting outflow boundaries out, and what you ended up with were storms exploding out of nowhere right over the metro and becoming just damaging. I mean, we saw along this line here, we saw wind gusts on my Doppler radar of like 70 miles an hour, and then as it moved into Brevard, it kind of faded out. Now, we didn't get any ground truth of that 70 mile per hour wind, but here's some of the wind gusts that were actually logged yesterday. 64 mile per hour gust in Haines City, or south of Haines City. Patrick Space Force Base, 62 mile per hour gust. Melbourne Beach, 46. Titusville, 45. Rockledge at 44. So those storms were something yesterday. Those storms were really something. They really, really were. Yeah. So that's where they came from. They kind of came from out of nowhere, but yeah. How's the rest of the week look flying out on Thursday? So here we are. And I'll lose the radar for just a moment so I can pop up the 7-day forecast. We've got a pretty stormy pattern. 70% coverage of storms for tomorrow. You know what? Let me load up this one so that it has the pretty summer icon on there. There we go. Oh, wait a second. I had the totally wrong one loaded. My bad. 70%. I'm tired. Can I try that part again? All right. 70% coverage of showers and thunder showers today. 80% coverage of rain tomorrow. We're quite stormy these next few days. Lots of activity going on around Central Florida. Yeah. Jody says AI can never replace me. God, I hope. Listen, for the sake of my family, I hope that's the case. All right, to the tropics we go. Are we ready? Shall we chat? Anybody? Yeah? All right. Before I get to the tropics, anybody have questions about our local stuff? And then we can get to the tropics. Marianne's asking, would Brett impact Daytona Beach? And good morning. Well, good morning. You usually put the simple pleasantries first and then ask your question. I'm just teasing you. All right. So we've got the stuff out in the tropics happening. Let's just take a wide look. There are two things in the Oceania. You've got Tropical Storm Brett and Invest 93 behind Brett. And then behind that, we've got something else. So let's just start off kind of setting the stage. We'll start with Brett, okay? Where is it? What is it doing? All that fun stuff. So here's Tropical Storm Brett. Convection looking better and better. Trying to increase overall size and scope. 5 a.m. advisory has winds of 40 miles an hour, slowing its forward momentum down, slowing to 17. It was moving at 20 miles an hour yesterday. All right, so that's where it is right now. What about the future? Let's take a look at the forecast from the National Hurricane Center, okay? Continuing to move off toward the west, northwest, and look at that. We think Thursday becoming a hurricane, Category 1 intensity, and then moving into the Caribbean as a tropical storm and starting to weaken as it moves into the Caribbean. There, for example, that is 2 a.m. Saturday morning, south of Puerto Rico as a tropical storm, and then watch the wind speeds. Watch how those wind speeds are adjusting. Saturday 2 a.m., 65 miles an hour. Sunday 2 a.m. at 60 miles an hour. So the overall thought here, okay, and I'll pop up just the broad cone for you. But the overall thought here is that as the storm system moves into the Caribbean, it goes face first into a whole bunch of wind shear. And when that happens, obviously, tropical systems do not like wind shear. So it starts to beat it up and thus weaken it. All right. So for family, for planning purposes and all that fun stuff, there it is, Friday, 2 a.m., moving through the Caribbean islands into the Caribbean. And then we think staying south of Puerto Rico, but we'll look at the model data together here in a few moments' time and give you a real good idea of what we think is happening, okay? So that's where Brett is now. Let's look at the computer forecast models, okay? A big shift today from yesterday, and I don't think that this is much of a surprise. Basically, all the models are now saying, yeah, we're going to go west. Why? Because the models are all uniform, saying it will stay a weaker system. And weaker systems go west, okay? Let me scroll my comment. A lot of comments this morning, so I apologize. But it shows that you guys have great questions to ask. So trying to get caught up to tropical stuff here. So that's where the models are right now. Questions about that so far? Tropics time. All right, very good. Now we're getting to that. Let's see what Brett's doing. Yeah, very good. Okay, all right. Wow, lots of questions. Lots of questions. Looks like the GFS was wrong again. Doesn't look like Brett is recurving before the Caribbean. Yeah, well, I mean, there's good reason as to why the GFS was indicating that, right? But that's not the case now. So all of the models now, essentially all of them are doing that weaker goes west scenario. Why? Well, for one thing, the models are getting better data because Brett is undergoing tropical cyclogenesis, or it's developing. Okay, so that's the first thing. It's almost impossible to track systems that haven't developed. So now that Brett is developing, it's giving the models the opportunity to sniff it out, to figure it out. So that's number one. Number two, look at the intensity models on this puppy, all right? Hold on, I got to type it in and get there. All right, look at the intensity models on Tropical Storm Brett. A couple days ago, they were going ballistic. They were going bonkers. Half of them were bringing it to like Cat 3 intensity. Now, notice that the vast majority of the computer models do not even take Brett to hurricane intensity. That's the big difference. If it were a hurricane, it would want to recurve. Or if it was a strong hurricane, it would want to recurve. But weaker goes west. And so that right there, that's the whole ball game. All right? That's fine. Look, that's fine. I mentioned this yesterday, and I'll mention it again today, though. Brett is in fairly unique positioning. This is a look at where this is. Let me just do this. Change this around. Let's see. Hers 2018. All right, so give me a few seconds. Yeah. All right. So this is a look at where Brett is and has been. Versus those red icons there. Those red icons are where tropical systems have formed. So that's where Brett is. It is a very, very small company. So we don't typically see June systems form in this spot. And I'd mentioned this yesterday. I think it's kind of an interesting little tidbit. Get there. Let me just load all the graphics. Okay. All right. So when we think about Brett, it is the earliest named storm this far east in the Atlantic Basin. The old record holder, which I think is just ironic, for earliest named storm so far east is Brett. It's 2017 version. So thought that was pretty interesting. And if it does develop to be a hurricane, it would be the earliest hurricane this far east. All right. So that's all the data, all the info we have on Brett. It does not look like it's going to be a big threat to us here in Central Florida. Okay, that's the good news. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns? Anybody have anything to add? Anything. I can promise you I will continue to track the tropics all season long, and I will do so with no hype. I will give you the information, and we'll look at the raw model data on this in a moment. But I'll give you all the information I got. But I'm going to give you the forecast without hype. Beth says, this model, can it change? There's going to be changes. There's going to be ebbs. There's going to be flows. But at least in terms of the eventuality, we're pretty decently locked in here. Let me load for you the GFS and European raw models. All right? And we're just going to go through this together, and then we can get into some more of the more monotonous stuff, right? But European and GFS both developing the storm system, okay? Both weakening it as it approaches the Caribbean, right? You're not seeing that bright yellow. You're starting to see more green. So that's Friday. Both models are kind of trying to weaken it. New this morning, the GFS is no longer wanting to recurve it. The GFS is wanting to bring it into the Caribbean. So that's 7 p.m. Friday. Both models have it in the Caribbean. The Euro by 8:30 Saturday morning essentially fades it out completely. The GFS keeps like a blob of moisture around Hispaniola. And then eventually all of these are working over toward like the Yucatan Peninsula and the Bay of Campeche around the end of June. Speaking of the end of June, I haven't updated this, but end of June, yeah, watching the Bay of Campeche / South Texas. So this may end up going that direction, but that's the look at those models. So there's that. All right, next thing. Behind Brett. This thing doesn't look like a ton at the moment because it's kind of, it's kind of reorganized. The sun is starting to come up and heat things up. So we're going from this like diurnal setup to your normal setup. But there's a definite spin there. This is Invest 93. So to familiarize yourself, on the far left side of your screen is Brett. At the center of your screen, that's Invest 93. That's the second wave that we're watching. Now with a high likelihood of developing over the next 2 days' time. Conditions are favorable, and it's going to end up that Brett's going to go into the Caribbean. This one's going to try and like go up to the north. So we end up probably not getting the Fujiwara. And the reality is we actually may end up getting Tropical Wave Invest 93 to be the stronger of the two deals. Oh, I see you guys are talking about Tropical Tuesday. I haven't even had a chance to mention. We're going to do Tropical Tuesday on Wednesday this week. Jeremy Nelson is traveling today, so we're going to do that tomorrow. All right? So just a heads up on that. So when we look at the tropics for right now, yeah, we've got Brett. We've got Invest 93 with a high likelihood of developing. And then look out on the coast of Africa there. There's another decent wave. Is the African wave train already beginning? How wild is that? So we'll be watching, but it does kind of look like the African wave train is beginning. Yeah. But for now, the two like main ones to watch are going to be Invest 93 and Brett. Here, let me set this. All right. Yeah, those are the two that we're really watching. All right, many questions I'm seeing. So, since we're tracking the tropics, let's look. How many times do they go west, weaken, and then reorganize and get stronger closer to land, Vicky? They can. There's a lot of wind shear out there in the Caribbean right now, so not really anticipating a ton of that, but it's all possible. Let's see here. I'm slowly working my way to the late summer when most of our hurricanes form here in the Gulf. This year, this year's going to be an interesting year. That's very, very much where I'm at. This is going to be an interesting year. El Nino playing in and all that stuff. All right, playing catch up. A bunch of comments, and I apologize not to rush you, but what's going on with what is following Brett? All right, so I'm like 4 minutes behind. Drink. Yeah, why? Because I said Bay of Camp. Didn't say it that time. All right, let's see here. Kelly says, every time I see the drink comments, I take a sip of coffee, and I'm convinced everyone wants me. Yeah, me too. The Bay of Campeche. It's a game, I guess. Apparently, everybody likes to drink when I say that. So, what are we at? 3? I don't know. Tropical Tuesday coming this Wednesday. I know, Dana. I know. Jared, listen, it's summertime. Jeremy's on vacation, so there's that. Mickey says the wave train has started. I know. Isn't it wild? I mean, it really is. It really is wild. You don't usually get this kind of activity during the month of June, like at all. But here we are. All right. Not a ton of Saharan dust out there right now. Here, let me dial that up. So here's what we call the SAL, the Saharan air layer. It's kind of further north over Africa and over the Atlantic. So as long as these waves are staying far enough south, they're in a moisture-laden atmosphere. Good question, though. All right, let's see. Would be interesting looking at the years when we had early African development to see how storms went. Well, when we look at the month of June, seriously, when we look at the month of June, okay, this is where tropical systems have formed during the month of June. And that icon that you see there, that's where Brett formed. There's only a handful. And of those years that developed, June MDR activity, main development region activity, which is where Brett is linked to very active, even hyperactive seasons. So it will be interesting. You know, one thing when we look at the forecast, let me type in standby. That's May 17th. All right. So when we look at the forecast numbers, okay, where's the update? No. Did we not update any of these? Hold on. I know it's here. All right. So when we look at the forecast numbers, all right, WESH, our hurricane forecast that we put out in March, when everybody was talking about a quieter season because of El Nino, we went kind of at or above average. We're probably on the lower end, you know. Colorado State has updated. They went from below average to above average. So they've updated, and NOAA put out their wide range. We may all be low at the end of the day, but you know, our forecast that we put out in March before there was any indication of this, I still think it's a solid forecast, particularly because it was the first of the lot. Let's see here. Mickey, is MJO in phase? Maybe that's why things have started so early. It's more in phase for the Atlantic than it is the Pacific. The Pacific has been just complete desolate atmosphere, which is just weird. Patty, is it creepy that I just brought everyone to the bathroom with me? It wasn't creepy until you mentioned it. So, yeah, you know, I think, and we're not going to update our WESH forecast. You know, we're going with what we're going with. The one thing that's interesting, and I need to mention this, is that there's so much activity off the shoreline in our cycling. So to me, it's going to be a lot of recurving systems, I think. But there, of course, is those landfall hotspots that we have outlined, and you're always able to go and check out our hurricane season forecast by heading over to wesh.com/hurricane forecast. Creative use of vernacular there, wesh.com/hurricane forecast, and you can check it all out and see what's going on. Amiana says, I'm not sticking around for hurricanes. Time to go. Yeah. I know, Debbie, anyone can do that. You know, last year we just said near average. Wait, it's trying to figure out, I've got Jeremy texting me. It's trying to figure out, do it after I get off Coffee Talk. It's trying to figure out the best way to communicate. You know, that's really what it is. So that's, for me at least, that's the struggle. So anyway, wesh.com/hurricane forecast. But yeah, I truly think it's going to be, I truly think it's going to be an interesting year. You know, we're already working those waves off of Africa. That's something. All right, questions, comments, concerns. What takes it from an invest to a named storm? Well, it has to undergo what's called tropical cyclogenesis. Okay. Essentially, an invest is the like lowest version of a system. Tropical wave is an invest. Breezy showers, it's an unorganized area of moisture. Okay. It's tagged an invest when it's something that the Hurricane Center wants to run computer models on. Then you get a tropical depression, which is still weak, but is starting to organize. And then you get a tropical storm with winds of 39 to 73 miles an hour, or a hurricane with 74 mile per hour plus winds. So it's just organization. That's what it is. It has to undergo tropical cyclogenesis. So fun. Last year we had pretty much no tropical systems last July and August. Correct. And that kept our WESH 2 hurricane season forecast right on the money. Yeah. Tad, while I appreciate you not changing the official forecast, I think a section with a running analysis and adjustments observed could be useful. I mean, we keep an analysis of what's out there. Speaking of which, I suppose I can go in and update that. Hold on. Okay. All right. So we keep a running analysis. There's your scorecard. For invests, we had that tropical depression yesterday. Actually, I guess because it's a tropical storm, we can take it out of the tropical depression only category. All right. Updating. Saved. All right. So that's our running scorecard for the year. All right. Even though Brett, we have had 3 named storms. So there's that. All right. Global models and ensembles, please, with sugar on top. Mickey, of course. Yes. All right. So let's do that. Let's get to the nitty-gritty of sorts. All right. This is the raw model data. We show this oh so often during hurricane season. And I'll go with the basin view. We'll start wide, and then we can kind of work our way down. So there it is, right where it says forecast high. That's the tropical storm. That's Tropical Storm Brett. All right, so watch through time. This is the GFS. Notice right here, I'm just pausing this. This is 2 p.m. Thursday. You've got Brett approaching the Caribbean islands, and you've got the system behind it, perhaps trying to develop. And I, that's where I wonder if that one gets a little stronger. Notice there's that next wave back behind it out in the Atlantic as well, right? And notice, let's just go back for a little bit. So you've got Brett in the Caribbean. Let me change to the Caribbean view just for the sake of argument here. There it is. Watch how Brett weakens south of Jamaica out near the Turks, not the Turks and the Caicos, the Cayman Islands, right? And then on the right-hand side, that system there, right there, that's Friday, 2 a.m., June the 30th. That's what would be Cindy, or that's Invest 93 doing its thing, right? And then if we go back out to the Atlantic Basin view, kind of running into the ABC Islands there in the southern Caribbean is the next thing. It just loses its Coriolis force. And basically you've got Cindy doing something out there in the open waters of the Atlantic. So that's where the GFS is right now. Just kind of trying to show nothing big and nothing threatening us. Okay, that's the most important thing. Let's switch over to the European. All right. There's Brett working in, right? We know that working into the Caribbean. There's the next wave, which will become Cindy back behind it. And the European is kind of saying Brett's going to get a little strong. And then as it weakens, Cindy back behind it would end up becoming kind of the more dominant of the storm systems, right? That's as far as the 6C model run goes. So I can go back a model run. And there's Cindy. Kind of going up and around. The European is not really wanting to develop the wave behind it much, but you know, it's just the way it goes. So it'll be interesting. Hey, it'll be interesting. No big concerns though for us. I think that's my big takeaway. That's the one piece of the puzzle that I'm quite okay with. No big threats to us. All right. But either way, the African wave train is starting. You got Brett on the left, Invest 93 kind of in the center, and the next wave over to the right side. Yowza. It's going to be a busy season. Okay. All right. So that's where we're at, my friends. That's where we're at. Busy tropics, busy radar in our area right now. Let's take one last look at our first warning live Doppler radar. And our northern spots still tracking those showers and those thunder showers across. It's pouring in Ocala. The good news is there's nothing severe there right now. But as I loop it, we're definitely watching some stronger storms, particularly for the time of day, right? Particularly for the time of day. You know, watching some nice heavy rain right into Ocala. Yeah. As far as the wind velocity goes, not a ton of wind, but just some nice heavy downpours. Yep, works for me. All right, people, that's it. Be the sunshine in someone else's day. I will see you at 3:30 for the afternoon coffee talk, where we will be tracking all about our stormy pattern in Central Florida. And then, because I'm in for Manalfi again, that means that I will see you at 9 p.m. for more. Sound good? Sound good. All right. Be the sunshine in someone else's day. Thank you for hanging out for Coffee Talk. See you at 3:30 here and on TV at 4 o'clock. Bye, y'all.